are all equal. It's time that we're all heard. Thank you for tuning into A Voice for All. I am your host, Jamila Gamble. If at any point you'd like to get involved in tonight's discussion, feel free to tweet me at Miss Jams PCCS. I would love to hear from you, and I'm looking forward to hearing that little chime, hearing your message. Once again, we have Suzanne joining us on tonight's show. She is my expert co-host. And Suzanne, I'd like to get your take on the students you work with. I know personally, I have students who do have physical disabilities, and oftentimes people fail to realize there's a personality behind that disability. Do you feel you have the same kind of issue?
Oh, of course, yes. I've worked with many students and continue to with numerous different disabilities, whether it's physical, mental, or both. And yes, I find that especially out in the community, people will stare, and I don't believe it is to be rude. It's just they don't know. So I would
maybe
rather,
it's a curiosity. I don't know. I always wonder that too.
And they're different. They're not like everybody else. They might be in a wheelchair, but the fact that they just assume that they have a cognitive disability is very saddening. And when they just stand there and stare, so I will approach people and ask them if they would like to ask any questions, because it's never wrong to ask a question. I would rather people come up than just stand there and stare at the students I work with, whether they do have a physical disability or I'm out in the community with a child with autism and they're stimming and doing something.
Oh yeah, that's the big one too, when they're seeing them doing what, their hand flapping or their toe walking.
Yeah, or they're self-talking.
Exactly, but fortunately now that we have the show Voice for All, we can answer those questions you may have. I understand completely that, you may be out and about and you might see someone who looks slightly different and you don't know how to engage them. That's the goal here on A Voice for All, is to answer those unanswered questions and to help everyone in our community become more disability friendly, so to say. So today's show is called Voices Heard. And like going back to the point that I started off with, is that there's students we work with, especially those who has a physical disability, and people are like almost mind blown when they see that they could write or pick something, carry on a conversation. It's like, oh my goodness, he can do that. Just because one thing is not working as well as the rest, they assume that something is wrong. What do you have to say about that?
I totally agree with that, and people's not being aware of these people and their capabilities. These people are amazing and are capable of so many things.
Better than you and I at times too. Yeah.
Like one student I used to work with, I would have to ask him computer questions on how to do this program because he just opened his laptop. He does have a physical disability, but he could move her around with this keypad he had on, and he could do anything on the computers.
I feel like we could have a whole other show on the amazing things we have seen our students do or people in the community do. So once again, I'm going to take a second here before we go to break. If you see somebody on the streets, in your school, at a program or a party, think about if something was wrong with you and somebody was giving you that stare down. How does that make you feel? I'm sure it makes you feel extremely uncomfortable and a little awkward. So can you imagine how an individual with a disability feels? I don't see why it should be any different. If you don't like someone staring you down, why should you do to somebody else who might be different? So we have two fantastic guests on our show, Voices Heard, and we are going to hear their voice. We are giving them an opportunity to showcase and share with us what they're amazing at, to celebrate them. At any point, if you want to get involved in tonight's discussion, you can tweet me at Miss Jams PCCS. Once again, thank you to Suzanne for being my expert co-host. Hopefully we'll be seeing her again on other episodes. Once again, this is A Voice for All. I am your host, Jamila Gamble. Get involved in tonight's conversation. Voices Heard. This is a chance for you, if you're curious about someone with a physical disability, what their mindset may be or who they are, you will find out on today's episode. After the break, we're going to go to the community and hear what you have to say and hear what your opinion is. This is A Voice for All, and I'm your host, Jamila Gamble. welcome back to A Voice for All. I am your host, Jamila Gamble. Once again, if you want to get involved in our conversation, you can tweet me at MissJamPCCS. This is the part of the show where we go to the streets to hear what you have to say. And just as a reminder, if you ever see us out in the community, you see that wonderful Rogers logo, do not hesitate to come and talk to us. We love to hear what you have to say. We're out there quite a bit getting the residents' take on the question of the week. And this week, our question is, do you know other disabilities within your community? In honor of our topic, Voices Heard, in all honesty, I often feel that the biggest disability that people are well aware of is autism. It has become very publicized, and we're very glad to know that it's out there and people are aware, but there's also other disabilities within our country, within our community, in our schools, in our families. What disabilities do you know? Let me know. You could tweet me at MissJamsPCCS. And we went on the streets, like I mentioned, and got a taste of what you, the residents, had to say. And it was extremely fascinating to hear the other disabilities that were in our community that people either work with or are related to or have seen. So let us know, PCCS, Miss Jams, let me know on Twitter. And let's go now to our community segment and get your take.
The disabilities I know of are Tourette's, Down syndrome, and autism.
I know of stuff like dyslexia and learning disabilities like that that make it hard for people to learn.
Dyslexia, autism, brain disorders of a whole bunch, and there's a whole bunch.
Well, there's physical, mental, but there's also learning disabilities as well. So it's just basically if you have some need in an area, just need extra support. So that's what I pretty much know.
Anything from MS to diabetes to acquired disabilities from car accidents, spinal cord injuries.
I'm aware of blindness, physical handicaps, mental handicaps, learning disabilities. I don't know, there's a lot of different disabilities in a lot of different areas.
I have a friend that's an amputee. He's a disability. A few people with mental health issues in the region.
Well, it depends. There are many disabilities that I know of. There's mental disabilities like depression, anxiety issues as well, or there's physical disabilities. People are paraplegic, and people need help in everything, I suppose.
There's learning disabilities. There's earlier today I had someone in our store that needed a tie to be tied, but he could not understand how to tie it. He actually went on a video because we didn't want to tie it for him. We had to show, we had him watch a video so he could learn for himself. So we taught him by him watching a video.
Welcome back, and thank you to those viewers who we saw on the streets and gave us a moment of their time and shared their input with us. Let's touch base on some of the disabilities that we heard. MS, mental health, amputees, autism, learning disabilities. Let me add to that, Rett's disorder, Angelman syndrome, Turner syndrome, cerebral palsy, Down syndrome, the list goes on. Those are the other voices in our community that we on A Voice for All are trying to hear. Do you know someone who has a disability? Let me know, Ms. Jans PCCS. Maybe you could refer them to the show. Maybe there's something they could hear that would be of benefit to them. Some of the points that I heard from the viewers on the street was that they didn't know how to engage, maybe helping them, and they turned into a video to help that individual. So thank you to those people who went above and beyond and found different means to connect with the individual who required more assistance. If you have any questions, feel free to email me at missjams.pccs. After the break, we're going to have a very fascinating guest, two of them actually, where their voices will be heard. Make sure you're tuning in. Let your friends know. Let your neighbors know. I'm Jamila Gamble, and you're watching A Voice for All. Hello, thank you for tuning into A Voice for All. I am your host, Jamila Gamble. As I mentioned previously, this week's episode is called Voices Heard. As a teacher in the community, this episode is truly meaningful to me because I work with fantastic students, and oftentimes people fail to realize there is a personality behind the individual who has a disability. And on today's show, we have two fantastic guests, Lori, Simon, and Wally. Hi, Wally. Hi, Simon.
Hey.
And hi, Lori. Thank you
Hi,
for being on the show.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Now, yes, Simon, we're going to start with you.
All right.
You may have a physical disability. Sure, you're in a chair, but I know behind that there's a pretty awesome guy. Tell us about yourself.
Well, I'm a 22-year-old student, and I'm studying architecture. I love buildings. I love just kind of making things, and I'm very creative, and I just really enjoy doing that. And yeah, I'm very outgoing, I have a wicked sense of humor. I don't take anything seriously. So, I mean, that's one thing about me, yeah.
I noticed that even before we started the show, and you were talking about your ride, and you're like, hey, if it all fails, I'll just walk home. To some people, they'd be like, I don't know how to take that. Do I laugh? But I know you have a sense of humor, and it was just refreshing, you know? You were okay with that. Sure, I'm going to put a joke out there.
Yeah, of course. I mean, you can't take life too seriously. I mean, things happen for a reason, and the way I see it is God doesn't give you anything you can't handle.
Right.
So, I mean, you just gotta kind of take it and go with it, and just can't hold on to things like that.
And when I read your bio, you've been handling this beautifully.
Thank you.
Right? So Simon is a person in our community. Simon is a person. You know, forget the chair, forget that he has a really cute service dog that I like to keep for myself, Wally. But Simon is a person, and that is the thing that we really need to zone in on, is that he has a sense of humor. He's involved in school. He wants to be an architect. Nothing is stopping him. And if he feels that way about himself, then as a community, we should feel the same way about him. Which brings me to our next guest, Lori.
Hi.
Lori, believe it or not, is an author. That's right.
That's right. 2 books.
I'm not going to try to read. I'll do the first part, Lori, and then you can help me with the second part.
Okay.
Living with
a beta-lipoproteinemia.
I tried, guys. I tried. I really tried for about 2 weeks to get this name down packed, and it just wasn't working. So I waited until the pro came on the show to tell us about herself. Lori, who's Lori? Who are you?
I'm Lori. I'm a very strong and very dedicated to myself kind of person. I'm very easygoing, always laughing. I've been through a lot, problems like Simon, and I've managed to keep myself very happy.
Yeah.
Very, I push myself to do things that really I shouldn't be doing. I really would love to be an inspiration to everybody.
I think you are right now. Absolutely.
My motto is, use it before you lose it, or no pain, no gain. No matter what life gives you, if you fall down, get back up and do it again.
And I'm just going to stop you for 2 seconds. Oftentimes, you know, we idolize Oprah and we idolize all these celebrities for all the so-called amazing things they do and all their inspirational stories. And really, I think the inspirational people are people like Simon and Lori. Like, I'm really trying to compose myself here, but truthfully, I could not imagine what it would be like to have a physical disability. I could not imagine what it would be like to be in a chair. But for, say, Simon and Lori has her AFOs on, they're still trucking along. They're not letting anything stop them. They're not, you know, worrying about what people have to say. You guys are you know? I really don't know how else to put it, but you guys are you.
I find when people complain, I say, well, there are people who are worse off than you.
Right. How do you handle that, Simon? When if people, you know, approach you?
I just say God doesn't give you anything you can't handle, you know?
Right.
I mean, that's why I don't wish I could walk, because he gave this to me for a reason, and that reason's important. And to kind of get that cured or whatever, it's,
Yeah.
there's no point to it if he has a reason
Right.
for that to be there. And it's made me who I am today. And I wouldn't change who I am.
You're not
proud
questioning that.
No, I'm proud of who I am right now.
Right.
And that's something I take, very seriously. Yeah.
And to add to what Simon had to say, I often say with some of the students I've worked with, they have a special gift about them. They have taught me, I may be the teacher, but they have taught me how to be patient, how to be humble, grateful, to think outside the box. Like, they have pushed me to so many heights that I never knew I could even reach, and really, I owe them the thanks. Simon, Lori, it's really, it's individuals like you. Individuals first. Forget what the disability may be. The individuals first is what we as a society have to pay attention to. And when Susie and I were talking earlier on, we raised the point of the stares that people do in the community. Lori, how do you feel if people, stare at you per se?
I really don't care.
That's right.
The part I don't like is people shut doors in my faces.
Right.
Or when I'm walking, I'm really off balance with my walker. You're trying to walk and people are cutting me off at the same time.
What about you, Simon?
I don't mind staring. It doesn't bother me. I don't notice it.
Do you tell them how good looking you are?
No, I don't bother me. I don't know what you're talking about. But my biggest pet peeve is probably people that can walk that use the elevator, and you try and get in there, and it's me and a dog.
Right.
And I can't get, there's escalators. I mean, I understand you're lazy, but there's stairs that they move by themselves.
Right.
I mean, come on. It's not that much of a deal. And, people that are scared of the service dog, I mean...
Oh my goodness.
Yes.
I wish you guys could reach through your TV screens and play with Wally. See, technically Wally is supposed to stay still and not jump and be all friendly like most dogs are. But behind the scenes, can we get a close-up on how...
Do you want him up here?
Can we, can we get Wally up?
Wally, stand.
Wally,
Wally, come here. Up. Good boy.
Is this not the definition of cuteness right now?
Good
I know
boy.
there's a sign, and there is a sign on him that says "Do not pet." But how do you resist? How do you resist not petting Wally? Now, which brings me to another point. Oftentimes, people see a service dog, and they always assume that the dog is for the visually impaired or people who might have maybe a hearing impairment, whatever it may be. What do you use Wally for?
Well, Wally's a huge help, and okay, Wally,
You're not supposed to, Wally. You're not supposed to.
All right, he picks up my wallet. He'll pick things up that falls on the ground. I mean, he's very helpful. He barks for help, all that kind of stuff. So he's very, very friendly, very helpful.
He's just trying to get his 15 seconds of fame in right now. You can't blame him. He's trying to get his time in.
But yeah, very friendly, very helpful. I mean, picks up things, opens the doors, barks for help if I'm in trouble.
Right.
If my wheelchair falls down and breaks apart, he'll bark. And it's very handy. I feel safer, I feel more independent. So that's what, he's there for. And it's great.
We salute you, Wally.
Yes.
For all that you do. I want to go back actually to Lori's book here. First off, Lori, kudos to you for writing. This is your second book, you said?
That's my first.
Your first?
I have a second book.
On the way, or?
No, I already have it.
Oh, well, look at that.
I brought it with me.
How many of you are published authors of 2 books? Lori.
I wrote and I self-published that book.
She wrote and she self-published. So, Lori, if people want to get a hold of your book, how can they find it?
They can find my name on Facebook under Lori Fazard, or they could email me at spoonsfan@rogers.com. Spoons, as in, when you're eating soup, you have a spoon.
Okay.
Spoonsfan@rogers.com.
So instead of, going to Walmart or wherever it may be to find a bestseller of a inspirational story, let's look to some of our local heroes here. Lori has published 2 books of her own. This is her story, and I think it's individuals like Lori and Simon who we need to celebrate. Forget what their disability may be. Forget what they're not able to do. There are things these 2 people can do that I'm pretty sure you and I cannot do at all. So I want to thank you both personally. I want to remind people in our community that if you see anybody who has a disability, it doesn't hurt to show a bit of appreciation. You know, let them pass. Don't rush them. Don't crowd the elevator, as Simon was saying. Thank you, Lori.
We're not going to eat them.
We're not going to eat them. You're not going to eat them.
We're normal.
You are people first, and that's what we need to realize. Peel Region, they are people first. So thank you so much, Lori. Thank you so much, Simon. Thank you so much, Wally. I would really love to cuddle you right now, but technically I'm not allowed to. Thank you for everything that you have taught us, that you have brought to the show. If you ever have any questions, you could email me at missjams.pcss@gmail.com. If you have any questions for those individuals, we'd love to hear from you. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for being on the show. I am your host, Jamila Gamble, and this is A Voice for All.
Thank you.
And welcome back. If you're just tuning in, you missed a phenomenal interview. Thank you to Simon and Lori and Wally, Simon's service dog. They were on our show, which is called Voices Heard. Oftentimes, like I mentioned before, people who have a physical disability, an obvious physical disability at that, society tends to believe that they aren't people, that they don't have likes, feelings, talents, skills. You heard from Simon, he wants to be an architect, and he actually mentioned that he would like to, I think, build houses or parks, I believe, for individuals who may have wheelchairs or who need accessibility issues. So way to go, Simon. And to our other local hero, Lori, who is a publisher, 2 books. Like I mentioned, I don't even have any books. So thank you to those 2 guests for really opening our eyes and our hearts. I would hope that for those of you in our community, if you ever see anybody who, may require assistance, maybe they need help, going up a hill, carrying heavy baggage, that we as a society could be a little bit more helpful, a little bit more patient, a little bit more kind. It doesn't take, time out of your day or ruins your day if you help your fellow man. That's what Peel Region does. We help one another here. So Simon and Lori really brought some valid points to us. They really made us realize that there are voices behind these individuals, and it's for us to take a second to get to know who they are. If at any point you have a question, maybe a show topic, feel free to email me at missjams.pcss@gmail.com. I would love to hear from you. Keep those tweets coming at missjampccs. I always love to hear what your feedback is. Like I said, if you have a show topic, I want to hear from you. This has been A Voice for All. Thank you for tuning in. I am your host, Jamila Gamble.